Hi, my name's Gav. I've been accused of being a bass player. I'd like to share what I know with people. I'm not like an expert or a professional musician or even particularly talented, but I've been doing this for almost 30 years now, and I've learnt a few tricks that I'd like to pass on. Anatomy of the modern bass guitar. This is a Fender Precision bass. These were invented in the 1950s by Leo Fender of the Fender Guitar Corporation. They're called Precision because these frets allowed you to play a bass instrument like a guitar, because before that you had an upright bass and you just had to put your finger in the right place and hope for the best. If you're like me and you're almost tone deaf, tough gig. So these are also a lot more portable than a like battleship sized upright bass, as much fun as they are. So if you're looking for a bass guitar, these are like sort of an industry standard, I guess. But you can get much cheaper ones, like the Squire range are perfectly good. Ibanez, Yamaha basses, very good. Japanese ones tend to be very reasonably priced and really, really good basses. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. So what's going on the instrument? So let's start off this end. It's got the headstock, and here you've got the tuning pegs. So I can tune my strings. So I can get my bass in tune, and on the back, those are the machine heads. Sorry, my camera's not reversed, which is very confusing. There's the machine heads, and here we have the nut. That's what the string is sort of tensioned over. It can be made of bone or of plastic or even metal. Some have a 0 fret. These lines are called frets. They're pieces of metal which mean, you know, the notes are in tune. That you can play up and down the instrument and be reasonably confident they're in tune. Come back to that in a second. Going up here, this is the neck. Here's where you play. It's the fingerboard. You've got the fret markers, these dotty things. Different basses have different styles of fret markers. Don't let it trouble you. Here, a bit tricky to see. The thing that's got dots on it is a split coil pickup. There's all kinds of different pickups. This one's a split coil, and it's quite a honky sort of sound. Like, it's quite fat. Different pickups sound different, but that translates the vibration of the string into electrical energy through magnets, and out it comes through here. This is called a jack socket, so this is just a jack cable, very standard. I've got two controls on my bass, just volume and tone. So I can use the volume for like little swells or tremolo effects or something, and the tone it's basically a high cut filter, really. It's I can take some of the top off, or I can make it a bit brighter. You'd notice the difference of that a lot more through an amplifier. This is straight into a board, so you're not getting a lot of harmonics. You're getting a very dead sound, but just for demonstrating, it's okay. So this part's the body, and this is just a bit of wood. You know, the strings on my bass come right the way through. It's a through body string. This is a bolt-on neck. The neck is bolted on. You can see it's literally bolted. Some are through neck, so it's all one piece of wood all the way through to here. And it rests sort of on your knee, and also on the back it's got a design affordance of that's kind of cut away slightly, so it's a little thinner there. Goes in under the ribs like that, so that's roughly a bass. Now the bridge here, this bit of metal, you can adjust these string saddles that way. You can also adjust the height the strings are at, and you can adjust sort of the spacing of the strings to a small degree as well. So if the string spacing's a bit much, you can take it into an extent. You can adjust the height of the nut as well, or file it down, and that's called adjusting the action. So when someone talks about the action of an instrument, it's how low are the strings to the fretboard. Now it's quite desirable that they'd be quite low if you want to play fast, but if you, what they call dig in, if you play hard and heavy, then you want them a little bit higher, otherwise you'll drown in buzz, basically. But yeah, when you get a new instrument, you can go along to a luthier or any guitar shop and you say, hey, I want this set up, and they'll know what you mean. Setup is when they adjust the action. A brand new bass probably have quite high action, and if you're a new player, that could put you off, because it's like, flipping heck, getting these strings down, I need a G clamp, or put a 20 kilo weight on it. So, you don't need these enormous hands. I haven't got huge hands. I can get around the bass just fine. I can do a 5-fret stretch. Like, you don't have to have enormous hands. If you are smaller, girls in particular often play shorter scale basses. I think this is a 34-inch scale bass. You can get 28-inch scale bass. Basically means the neck's shorter. Everything's proportionally smaller. I think it was Jack Bruce, possibly, or there's a guy from the Jam, I can't remember, always played a short scale bass and sounded fantastic and was brilliant. So, don't let it trouble you. Don't let the cork sniffers get to you and tell you, oh no, you have to play a full scale bass. No, you don't at all. Small scale basses can sound absolutely fantastic. So if you have got smaller hands, then that's what you want to be looking for. But you don't know until you try. People with small hands can play effectively because you can move, you can pivot the wrist. There's all sorts of things you can do. So you don't have to be Rachmaninoff to get around a bass. Didn't expect me to know that, did you? Classical music. Huh. So how a bass is played? Well, a lot of people use a pick. I use a pick sometimes. There's again cork sniffing snobbery against picks. I use my fingers sometimes. Picks are great. Picks, nice tone, nice rock tone, it really like cuts through the mix, and you can palm mute, so I can you can do like palm muting to take off some of the top end, and it just sounds good, whereas fingers, it's more like, it's a much smoother sound, and if you want sort of, if you want that kind of like funky sound, then fingerstyle can sound better. Pick can work well for rock or like Joy Division stuff, but just go for what you want. If you want to play it with a chisel, then play it with a chisel. You go through a lot of strings, but it really doesn't matter. It's what sound that you like that's important. And there's a lot of technical stuff to how to hold the bass, how to play the bass. But the main thing I want to stress is rhythm. And got here a little drum machine. You don't need to use drum machine. There's so many loops on YouTube, and on this video at the start and the end, I just got a loop off YouTube, ripped it, put it in GarageBand, played over it, imported it into iMovie. Far too complicated. You can just put a loop on YouTube and play along. You don't really want to play the bass by itself. Bass and the drums are one instrument, really. So you have the harmony and the melody. You got the chordal aspect to the music, and then you got the rhythm. And the bass really ties together the chordal aspect and the rhythm, but sometimes you come forward into the melody. I do it. I'm quite an up player in that I play up the neck. I play arpeggios, which are like chord runs. I play licks. I'm a bit of a frustrated guitar player, really, like Lemmy was from Motorhead. That's what he was accused of being. So yeah, there's a lot of different styles, but basically you are the glue. You are operating as one with a drummer to provide a rhythmic foundation, and then you are working to outline the chords, mostly around the root note when you get started, but as you get better, you can start to move beyond that, put licks in, put little scales in. But don't get too put off by people talking about music theory and all that kind of stuff. Basically, when you start playing bass, you want to do it like this. You want to get a groove going, you want to sit on that groove, and you want to enjoy yourself. I'm doing what I would recommend to practice. I've got a drum loop going. You don't have to own a drum machine. It's really visual for you to see. There's this cursor, and where there's the light, a bass drum. And as a bass player, the bass drum is the main thing you want to hit. So yeah, I've made it cha do dum do do cha dum cha do dum do do cha. But let's take it back to a very simple. There we go, single bass drum hit. And all you're looking to do is cover it with your note, any note. If it helps to nod your head or tap your foot, and you can do this for hours. You'll never regret doing this. This is how you work. I can't talk and play in time at the same time, but it's arguably I can't play in time at all. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. Right. Oh, let's do a Wu-Tang beat. That's the bass line to Triumph by Wu-Tang. It's a single note. anyone watching this is almost certainly too young and too fresh to remember 90s hardcore hip hop. There we go. And now that's called like legato playing. That's a fancy Italian word for let the note ring out. Okay, so now I'm going to try to play shorter notes. This is a lot more challenging, so you've got to be able to control your hands and take the note on and off, and that is like weeks of work to be able to do that for most players. But let's give it a go. Now, if you're really eagle-eared, you notice I've switched to a fretted note. It's actually quite hard to choke off an open string, which is what I was playing, but let's see if I can do it. So you probably can't see how I'm actually strumming these notes. I'm just sort of gently stroking my finger through the string. I'm barely touching the string, really. I'm not trying to dig in too hard. Always play with some form of amplification. If you don't, here's what happens. You get really used to playing without an amp, and you're like ripping the strings off your bass all the time, massive calluses on your fingers. Yeah, it feels great, but your attack of your notes goes, the attack is like the first portion of the sound, and you get no sustain in your tone, so you always trying to play harder and harder and harder, and you never get heard. You're playing too hard. If you don't play too hard, you've got a lot more. You got somewhere to go. You can dig in on those like little hard notes you want to like accentuate. So yeah, play soft. So let's go for a simpler beat. And that is like foundational bass playing. It's like finding a note, sitting on it, grooving with the drummer, and don't worry about like playing loads of chords and stuff until you can do this, because I tell you what people want in a bass player is someone who can like solidly lock in with the drummer and like sit back, and then once you've got that a bit, then you can start putting the extra notes in. So yeah, putting like ghost notes and slides and string bends and just throwing some random stuff in there, really not particularly musical, but so that's where you can start to go, but it all starts with like that. You just sitting with the drummer. If it helps you to beatbox like that, then do that by all means. So yeah, get a loop going, sit on it, couple of notes, don't start shredding. All right.